As a finance professional in a disrupted business landscape, what does it take to be in demand? What does it take to attract great paying international roles? If you're an ICAN member, it'll just take one exam. That's all it takes to complete the globally recognized SEMA professional qualification and the internationally respected CGMA designation. As a SEMA member and a CGMA designation holder, employers will look at you as a finance professional, constantly acquiring new skills to add value to the business. That's why they'll be willing to pay premium to hire and retain you. If you have 5 years of relevant experience and are an ICAN member, you can directly sit for the final exam of the SEMA Professional Qualification, the Strategic Case Study exam. Start studying the SEMA Professional Qualification. Prepare to make an impact.
Good evening, my professional colleagues, students, friends of Chartered Accountant, ladies and gentlemen. I want to welcome you to another edition of ICAN on Air. Today, Tuesday, 9th of August, a very special day. And I will be starting this edition on a very congratulatory note, celebrating an icon of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. It's a great blessing celebrating the lead doyen, the doyen of accountancy profession in person of Pa Akintola Williams, FCA, membership number 000014, a chartered accountant that got qualified in 1949 in ICWEA. On behalf of the 58th president, the governing council of our great institute, and the entire membership of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, we celebrate this icon today, marking its 103rd year on the planet Earth. Adoye, we promise you that we will continue to uphold the tenets of integrity and accuracy, the foundation upon which you laid this institute. We wish you many, many more years with great strength and great grace. Hip, 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 hooray! And that is how we're starting the edition today to celebrate our doyen of accountancy. And straight to the business, we will be having a great guest today talking on a topical issue called crude oil theft and the economic impact. You and I know how important it is. Crude oil is a major revenue even for our economy as a nation. And we're talking about the theft and the economic impact. And it's my pleasure to be guesting Mr. Ayo Akinduyite, FCA, who is a member of our great institute. He is an associate director with PwC line of services with over 20 working experience with leading player responsible for tax compliance, assurance, transfer pricing, tax advisory and planning, merger and acquisition, and dispute resolution. His vast experience working various teams to deliver high quality tax advice in support of various projects in Nigeria and on international basis. He is a key member of the industrial advisory team playing with important role in the physical space to achieve a relative balance PIA. He is a member of our great institute and also a member of the Chartered Institute of Management Accountant. We are in for it today because we need to talk specifically on the crude oil theft, the economic impact. One thing I want you to do, even for the episode of today, is to stay by, stay tuned, stay connected. Let me go on a very short break, and when I'm coming back, I'll come in with my guest for us to do justice for today's topic. I will be right back. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. And it's my pleasure to welcome our guest for today, Mr. Ayo Akinyetute, FCA. You're welcome on board.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, and good evening, viewers.
Thank you. Let's hit the ground running on our topic for today, which is crude oil theft and the economic impact. Crude oil. Hmm. Crude oil. When you hear that word, crude oil. Some Nigerians see crude oil as a blessing, while some see as a curse. Please educate our global viewers and our audience. Is crude oil a blessing or a curse to Nigeria and Nigerians?
Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe it's appropriate to trace the development, the economic development of Nigeria. Of course, at independence, Nigeria was doing very well economically, driven mainly by agricultural produce, until the commercial discovery of oil in the 70s or thereabouts. And from there on, Nigeria was basically have quite a lot of petrodollar to play with. And in the process, we seems to miss our steps with respect to agriculture, and then moved fully into the easy flow of petrodollar, so to say. And from there on, we seems not to have been able to manage the resource, the capital flow that came in with the advent of commercial production of crude oil. And from that point of view, we may say those that considers the discovery of oil as a negative, from a negative point of view, may not be wrong, but ordinarily it's meant to be a blessing and not a curse. So crude oil in itself is not a curse, but the fact that we have mismanaged the capital flow that came in arising from crude oil is what has brought Nigeria to its knees, so to say, today.
That's a very good way to start. Telling us that it's really not a cause, but the mismanagement of the inflow has actually turned it to be a different thing. I want to ask again, how relevant, or let me say, how important is it, this crude oil, as an index or variable in the equation of Nigeria economic growth and development? How important is it?
Well, I think it depends on the way we look at it. For example, if we look at it from a GDP point of view, crude oil contributes maybe about 10% to Nigeria's GDP at a point when the GDP was revalued was about 500 billion dollars or thereabouts. So crude oil the oil industry contributes about 10% to that. So we may say that is not particularly significant. When we look at other sectors like agriculture, manufacturing, and all that, that seems to contribute, a bit higher than that. But if you look at other factors, for example, like the contribution to the revenue, oil-related activities generate probably more than 60% of revenue in Nigeria. So that could be considered significant. But if you then look at it in terms of forex, the forex generation, about 90% of Nigeria's forex comes from crude oil and
mm.
petroleum related activities. So if you look at it from that point of view, we can then say that indeed um, crude oil is the mainstay of Nigerian economy, just the way blood is important to support the life of a living being.
What a very brilliant way. Just the same way that the blood flows in the marrow of every human being. Same is applicable with
Mm,
crude oil. Looking at the statistics you've given, GDP like 10%, contribution to revenue about 60%, Forex 90%. And I know the issue we are battling with when it comes in terms of this foreign exchange. This will take me to that step to now ask, we have heard severally that this crude oil theft is the major principal reason for reduced oil and gas investment in Nigeria. How do you explain this? How true it is, this claim? Please expatiate to our viewers at all.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it should be very easy to see some form of correlation between crude theft and reduced investment. Of course, that may not be the only factor, but that seems to play a very principal role. Maybe we'll start off by looking at theft. What is theft? That's somebody taking something that does not belong to him
To
or
him.
her. And from the point of view, of course, crude theft have been with us for a couple of years, but maybe it has assumed what government has described as industrial dimension. I've heard a couple of government officials describe the current scenario as industrial theft. The situation where on the average the production of Nigeria is about has hovered around 2 million barrels per day, sometimes a little bit higher, maybe 2.2. But gradually we've seen a slide and we're barely producing a little over a million
A
barrels.
million, yeah.
Yeah. So even at the point when we're producing 2 million, 2.2 million barrels, some portion of the crude was still being reported as being stolen. So effectively one could then project that on the average, we may be losing about, people may be stealing as much as a million barrels of oil. Just to
Mm,
give you an idea in terms of magnitude, a ship, a large ship would hold about a million barrels. So that means
mm,
a shipload of crude oil is being taken out of Nigeria by non-state illegal actors who do not own or possess those molecules. So in a way, clearly one can see the correlation, between investment. Why would you invest in a sector, where when it's time for you to do your exploration, when it's time to do your appraiser, when it's time to do your development, and then the actual production activities, you invest significant amount of money. Now, after production, when it's time for you to then take the product to market, somebody appears from nowhere and claims to be a stakeholder and
mm,
takes about 50% of what you have produced. I
mm,
don't see how such a business can be profitable. Because for you to be profitable, that means your rate of return has to be close to like 70%. And
yeah.
I can assure you that that is not the kind of return that the oil industry is making. So if you're losing 50% of your products, then you are likely to be running at a loss. And these are private entities. If you're running at a loss, many of the players are global players. The other countries that are competing for investable resources. So many of those resources will ordinarily, rationally, will go to other economies and not come to Nigeria. So understandably, crude theft has contributed significantly to the reduced investment in the sector. Other factors may be the fact that we did not pass PIA quickly. It took on the average about 20 years for us to sort the issue of PIA out. And by the time it's sorted, it seems as if the industry has actually moved on. So that could be potentially another factor that is responsible for the reduced investment flow that we've seen in recent times in Nigeria.
Very brilliant competition where people don't just even want to take those things. You invest a lot, and 50% of your investment is just under the water, flowing, and you see it moving out. When you're about to recoup it, you are just on the other verge of the side. And the delay in the PIA, like you mentioned, also, so attracting investment in that sector might be very difficult. I proceed by asking that you possibly give us a practical example, or just paint to us a scenario of the economic, social, and political impact of this crude oil theft in Nigeria. A practical thing for our viewers to learn.
Okay, I'm sure many of us in the last couple of weeks we've seen the naira, crash basically at the point when the about 7 years or thereabouts ago, it was about 200 naira to a dollar. So very recently, I think it crossed the 700 naira value. So we can see how significant the issue of crude theft can be to the overall economy. At the beginning of this conversation, we did mention that on the average, oil generates about 90% of Nigeria's forex. So if that product that drives your forex generation is now at risk, considering the fact that Nigeria is a largely import dependent country, we're basically spending dollars on virtually everything at a point, including toothpick,
Hmm.
significant amount on education, significant amount on healthcare, of course, virtually all the major inputs, including the key input into the oil and gas sector. Many of them are imported into the country. So we keep consuming dollars, but meanwhile, the main source of generating dollar, we're losing about 50% of it. So it's no brainer, that we may be constrained in our ability to generate foreign currency, knowing how poorly we have done as a country in terms of our ability to diversify the economy and encourage other sectors, to support the process of generating forex. So clearly we can see that connection, between crude theft and the poor economic performance of the country as a whole. I recall at the beginning of this current administration, one of the things that I felt was good, and represents some level of care on the part of government was that it seems as if the government was interested in protecting the poor and preserving the poor. And that was the main reason why things like the subsidy was retained, because we believe people that are living below $1 a day, there should be a way to protect them. The various welfare schemes, transfers, school feeding, and all that was basically in that direction. And that was the basis on which this government was reluctant to further devalue the currency at the onset of this administration. But unfortunately, it seems as if the government has then actively, played a role in eroding the value of naira by not tackling the issue of crude theft, and that's largely, impoverished a lot of Nigerians. You can imagine, um, you know, a minimum wage, what it was then, 30 naira, at the point where dollar was hovering around 200. The value is now less than half of that amount, and I'm not aware there's been any significant or material change in the wages of workers. So clearly, the poor gets poorer by reason of the fact that we have not managed the issue of crude theft. which has then affected our ability to generate forex, and our inability to generate forex has basically affected our external reserve, and of course that has exposed the naira, and now we're almost at the point where we are rationing dollars, even for critical and very important infrastructure intervention.
This is deep. This is deep, and I think not nearly later on the board by the government has actually put us at this very tight corner where even for the critical business we are struggling to get forex, knowing fully well that what produce the forex, 50% of it goes to illegal miner. I want to encourage our viewers to throw in their questions. I have Moses already talking to us this evening. He said the crude oil theft, I love the acronym COT, and the complexity of public and private industry stakeholder. What anti-corruption measure can be employed by government to curtail the menace and social and ensure accountability and transparency? That's from Moses for your response.
Yeah, thank you very much, Moses. Yeah, if clearly, to me, I think the most important issue we have in Nigeria today is the issue of crude theft. So if I were the president of this country, that would be taking almost 100% of my time, because
Hmm.
if we are not able to secure the resource that can generate the resources that we need to address other important issues like insecurity and all that, then we're completely exposed. So I would have left Abuja and basically demonstrate my intention, my willingness to address this issue and relocate to the Niger Delta and address
Hmm.
whatever is responsible for this massive, huge scale of crude theft. A
Hmm.
million a million barrels a day is significant. It's not something that someone can put in his pocket and just walk away. You need huge vessels. How are these things able to, just go on as if they were perpetrated by,
Okay, Damadu.
people that are by invisible being,
Hmm.
so clearly, and we have various anti-corruption bodies. We have EFCC, we have
ICPC.
ICPC, you have the police, you have various security agencies. I'm wondering why someone like the head of the NAVA, still keeps his job. I recall there is a particular security agency, civil defense, that is specifically, their role was specifically set up to protect the economic interest of Nigeria. I'm not aware the head of that agency has lost his job, even though
Hmm.
the most important resource is being carted away. So, in a way, if I were the president, first, I will have to hold some people accountable. Recently, I read in the news that the Minister of State for Petroleum and the group CEO of NNPC was at Delta State to explore options for resolution of this issue. I think clearly we need to do far more than that. We need to take very drastic steps, to protect this very important resource, including serious military intervention.
Seriously, we need to hold it with all seriousness and let the political will just be there so that we know that we protect the resource that provide the resources for an average citizen to survive. Mr. Ayo, let me ask, as a highly knowledgeable and widely traveled oil and gas expert and analyst, are there crude oil producing nations where this crude oil theft is as predominant as we have in our country, Nigeria?
That's quite interesting. I've done a few study. I'm not aware of any country where we see this level of, you know, economic sabotage,
Hmm.
um, theft, and without any major response, from those that have responsibility for managing this sector, this critical sector of the economy. Nigeria is not the only poor nation, where crude oil is being produced. Ghana has some level of crude oil. I'm not aware this kind of development is happening in Ghana. Equatorial Guinea is also a player in this industry, even though it's a very small nation. If it's able to protect its critical resource like this, then Nigeria, we really don't have excuse. Gabon is a critical player in this industry. I'm not aware there are instances of this magnitude of crude theft in a place like Gabon, or Angola is a major player. Even Libya, even though just recovering from a recent war, I'm not aware we're seeing the level of economic sabotage and destructive activities of hoodlums, happening in Nigeria. And of course, it will be difficult to say that this level of crude theft can be happening without some level of active connivance from very senior people in government. I just don't believe that government will be so helpless. Recently I heard that the National Assembly, were threatening, to move against the president, and because that's the only body that can legally, remove the president from office. And I'm surprised they were doing that on the basis of insecurity. Yes, insecurity may have contributed to crude theft, but I felt this is a conversation that we should have had much earlier, particularly considering the fact that this has been going on for a couple of years, that we have a government that is not able to protect our most important resource. I really don't know why such a president should remain in office one day longer.
Hmm. From your submission, it seems the government does this lackadaisical approach to this theft and tend to turn their eyes behind it and allow the things. Considering some of the nations mentioned, like Gabon, Angola, Libya, Equatorial Guinea, it's quite disheartening. But let me pick from the things you said last, talking about the connivance of the people that are doing it. There's this school of thought that based on the volume of crude oil, like you said, 50%, we have a ship with 2 million barrel and a million is out of it. That this crude oil theft that Nigeria loses to these illegal and thieves on daily basis are carried out by well-crafted and sophisticated syndicate, far beyond ordinary people like you and I who doesn't understand. Do you share this belief or this thought too, that it's highly being carried out by well-crafted and sophisticated individuals?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's the only rational explanation. How can this level of theft be happening? I'm not aware anybody have been arrested. I'm not
Hmm.
aware we have done any serious intervention that stop people from being able to cut away. Not just once or twice, it has become like a regular daily occurrence. It will interest you to know that crude theft is not the only form of major economic sabotage in the petroleum sector. Even refined products, you can imagine
Hmm.
we're not able to even get our refineries to work when we now import refined products. It's so easy for people to take it out of the country, through our very porous borders. We are not able to use the pipeline that we've invested substantial millions of dollars to build. Why? Because we're not just able to protect the pipeline, such that, you know, um, vandals are just having a free day.
Hmm.
So the only rational explanation is that this can only happen with active connivance of people who have the responsibility to protect it. And of course, who are the people that have the responsibility to protect it? The chief security officer of Nigeria is Mr. President, and incidentally happens to the substantive Minister of
Hmm.
Petroleum.
Minister of Petroleum.
So how
Hmm.
can it be under his watch that, people can take whatever they want, without any resistance whatsoever? And he happens to be the commander in chief of the armed forces. So what are the armed forces looking at when this treasured resource is being carted away, by unknown people. I wonder what other important job Mr. President would have engaged himself that is not aware of these developments.
Yeah, it's quite interesting that the substantive minister of petroleum, seems not to take the duty the way it's expected to be, and it's been a major challenge. Forcing down the revenue of the nation in large and putting even more people under the poverty level. Olubanje is coming up with a question, and I want to encourage more of our members to please let's talk about this. This is Crude Oil. It's something that contribute more than 90% to our foreign exchange, and to our revenue. I'm sure it's more than 60%. So we should have things to talk about as professional. Olubanji is asking, how can the fundamental errors of crude oil theft be effectively corrected professionally in line with the global uh, best practice?
Yep. Well, I think the first part is first for us to leverage on the use of technology. Crude oil has fingerprints, so there are peculiar and unique characteristics that is attributable to Nigerian crude oil. So if it's stolen, we should be able to track it and know effectively where it is. If people are able to track diamond, diamond that people can just basically put in their pockets. So why are we not able to track those, not only those that are stealing our crude, but those that are cooperating and working with them to buy this crude of them and then take them to their refineries to refine? So that's an area where I think we should be able to do more. Also in the area of security, the primary responsibility of government is to secure lives and properties. So if a unique resource and property of Nigeria can just easily be filtered away by criminals, so and we are not able to do anything about it, that basically challenge the sovereignty of the country. It just shows that we are not really a country in the true sense of it. So whatever it takes, whatever resource that is required, we should be able to put those resources together, and provide adequate security, for this resource, because this is what we then generate what we require to stabilize our economy, to invest in other sectors, to create jobs, and even to provide the funding required to address security challenges we're having in the Northeast, in the Northwest, and in practically every other aspect of every other part of the country.
Very well, very well. So adopting technology is very key. And you mentioned something. This crude oil has a fingerprint. So it's just like we logging in and logging out. So when you even sell it to another area, we can track and trace the source and be able to apprehend the people that are concerned. And you said it again, the security of the pipelines and some other areas. The truth of it is technology has changed the scope of different things, and embracing it would definitely, put us back on the right track. While we are still continue, I expect our viewers to throw in more questions. Let's engage our guest for today, who have been doing justice even to the topic that we are having. Mr. Ayo, let me say this. Apart from crude oil theft, could there be any other reason why Nigeria is continuously failing to meet with the OPEC crude oil production quota? Aside theft, is there any other reason that you can look through or talk to our viewers about?
Well, another important factor is the issue of investment. I can't recall the last time Nigeria, made significant investments in the oil and gas sector in form of the final investment decision. We signpost that yes, we are ready to move ahead with a major investment, maybe an LNG new train development. So maybe that's probably the most significant investment in the last couple of years, apart from the recent divestment by the IOCs and M&A activities. But of course, that's not adding, putting money on the table for exploration. So even everything, if everything is working well, the fact that you are producing a particular well, there will be a gradual reduction in your production profile. So if you don't make investment over time, your production will eventually ground to zero. So having additional investment is fundamental and is important. So in most economies, what you see is significant investment going into further exploration because we want to increase our proved reserves. Okay, then also going into development, so that it's not just enough for you that you to have the reserve. You need to be able to develop it and monetize it. We have seen in the last couple of years, the increased pressure and discussion around the environment, around decarbonization, and issues around it. So in the next few years, it's possible that the value we have seen in crude oil today may not be there tomorrow. So what do we need to do? We should develop the capacity to produce this oil and be able to get it to market. So it's not enough that we just have the reserves. And what do we need to do to create an environment that can attract the much needed investment? Because in terms of the quality of the crude, Nigerian crude is of very high grade. It's considered to be sweet crude, very valuable, and everybody is looking for it. So why will people ignore such a very good product? One is our fiscal environment. And like I mentioned that earlier on, actually it take us almost 20 years to pass a simple bill, and make it to become an act of parliament. Meanwhile, other industries are moving on. Other countries are moving on, even within Africa. So we need to become more effective in our law change process, such that we're able to tweak our laws to reflect what our fiscal preferences are, and then be able to attract the much needed investment. But we need to address the issue of security. The level of insecurity in the country is just so high. For more than probably 2-3 decades, we've been having issues of security challenges in the Niger Delta, the major area of oil production. If you recall, the issue of kidnapping that is now all over the country started in the Niger Delta. First, targeting expatriates. Now, basically that has now been exported to every part of the country. So a country that is really interested in attracting the right level of investment would ensure that issues like this were nipped in the bud. I can't, it's a simple matter of security challenge be allowed to snowball and become something that is, almost covering the whole country. So even if there's a country that is providing less profits, less return on investment, many investors will probably prefer to go there than invest your money in a country like Nigeria, where you put your money and you are not safe. The infrastructure that you build, people can just wake up one day
And just
and just blow up the pipeline. So these are issues, these are considerations, even beyond the fiscal consideration. The operational environment in Nigeria is extremely difficult. I recall one of my senior colleagues in the oil and gas industry then told us that in the 70s, in the 80s, if you want to drill a well, all you need is just go with the drilling engineer. As you are going, you get to the village, you can buy granite, you can buy corn, and you have that level of rapport with the community, and you just basically do your job. But today, before you go ahead to even spur a well, you have gone to get all manner of approval from local government, from state government, from the regulatory agencies. You have to mobilize all sorts of security apparatus, or else the workers are not safe. And of course, all these have implication on the costs of doing business. And of course, these are some of the factors that make Nigeria less competitive and unable to attract the much needed investment, in this sector. And just to highlight again, on the average, even when you have the money today, the oil and gas industry requires time. So then let me
Hmm.
give an example with the PSCs. Most of the PSCs, that basically produce oil now in the deep water. Many of them were signed in 1993.
Hmm.
But many of those licenses, the first maybe started production about 2003. I
Hmm.
think that was Abo. Bonga started production maybe in 2005. Hera in 2006. So you can see it takes more than 10 years to actually mature these assets. So by not addressing some of these fundamental issues, we're just telling the world that we're not ready for business,
Hmm.
clearly.
Hmm. It's germane that if the operational environment must be very good, security plays a major role, and we can see from your explanation that it's not just about the oil theft alone. It's critical that we have the security in place. Just talked about the story you said of the early 70s and 80s where people move freely to carry on their business. The cost of getting the security itself is very huge. Let me quickly take the question of Daniel before I bring up There was something we read today about the issue of Seplat, ExxonMobil. We'll come to that, but let me address Daniel's question. She's asking, she's asking, what can Nigeria do to take advantage of the expected gap in the EU zone, considering the geopolitical conflict in the Europe? What advice do you have on this? What are the
Yeah,
advantages?
well, the current conflict, the Russia-Ukraine war, presents a unique opportunity. But unfortunately, as usual, as a country, we are ill
Mhm.
prepared.
You
And the
prepared.
opportunity has come, and it's just going to go away, unfortunately. But what can we do? So the best time to do the right thing is maybe yesterday, but the next best
Yesterday.
time is today. So let's
Hmm.
roll up our sleeves. Let the Minister of Petroleum rise up to his responsibility. He can't just sit down in Abuja while the Niger Delta is bleeding. If I were him, I
Hmm.
would relocate to Port Harcourt and go to all those creeks with Governor Wike and
Hmm.
with Bayelsa State Governor, with Akwa Ibom State Governor, with Delta State Governor, and address these issues. If these issues are not addressed, and like I said, even when you have the money today, you can't mature the assets overnight. You require time. So if you want what we want to do in 10 years' time, we need to start working on it today.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it is absolutely important for us to fix security in the Niger Delta, and of course in every part of Nigeria, but exceptionally important. If we don't address that, then no, we're just not ready to take advantage of the opportunities presented. Crude theft, the impact of crude theft on the economy is not just the fact that people are stealing our crude alone. It also has an impact on gas, and that's the area that Europe is particularly interested in. Now we're
Hmm.
building major pipeline, the AKK pipeline. How are we
Hmm.
going to
Yeah.
get molecules to fill that pipeline? Because at the moment, even the NLNG, which is meant to be the cash cow for Nigeria, even though it has the capacity to operate at more than 99%, but really the actual production is probably above 60%. So we have
Hmm.
an extra 40% that we've left unutilized. And what's the implication of that? Several billions of dollars have been lost by reason of the fact that we're not optimally
Hmm.
utilizing our capacity in LNG. It's like we have invested money to build the plant, but now to provide the gas that is required to run it, we're not doing that. Why are we not doing that? Also related to crude theft, because a substantial part of our oil have gas associated with them. So the
Hmm.
associated gas, if you are not able to effectively produce your oil and you shut it in, then the gas will also not be produced. And of
Hmm.
course, this is impacting, the supply of gas molecules to NLNG. The same thing with the pipelines. If the pipelines are compromised and they have to be shut down, that may also affect the gas pipelines. And of course,
Hmm.
Nigeria is losing the much needed dollars. Can you imagine what could have happened? On the average, according to the group CEO of NMPC, Nigeria is losing about $2 billion every month from crude oil. Maybe if you had what we're losing from the NLNG side, it could effectively be another 1 to 2 billion. So let's assume, just for the purpose of this conversation, that we're losing
Yeah,
about $3 billion
3 billion.
in a year. That's $36 billion. That is what we don't even have up to that in our external reserve. We could have easily
Hmm.
have doubled our external reserves if we have done this basic housekeeping that we're talking about, instead of
Hmm.
somebody just sitting in Abuja, and expecting that, the primary reason why he has taken the oath of office is basically sleeping on duty.
Sincerely speaking, you are putting the president to what? He should leave the seat and relocate his position to where you generate the revenue. Have conversation with the governors at that particular place. Let me quickly take the question from Dr. Abel as saying, he's saying that crude oil theft is a complex activity. Do you think the success of the Untold Act has international dimension?
Of course, it does. As a country, we really don't have capacity to refine crude oil. So substantial parts of the crude will probably end up in foreign refineries. Maybe except maybe a few that goes to illegal refineries locally, but a lot of them will get into ships and leave Nigeria. But like I said, each crude has its unique footprint. So if
Hmm.
Nigeria is a serious country, we can leverage on our diplomatic relationship, and be able to track, and take necessary steps, to then curtail the ability of these smugglers, to utilize and use the stolen crude, such that we're able to work with other countries and identify those that are stealing the crude and their collaborators who are then taking this crude out to refine and then making money out of it. So clearly, I totally agree with you. There is an international dimension to it. But if our government is up and doing, if Mr. President is not sleeping on duty, he would have, easily could easily have addressed these issues.
Yeah, yeah, you've done justice to that. And Rasaki Muritala is saying, will it not be reasonable to assume that the persistence of the monumental economic sabotage can lead to divesting by foreign oil companies, thereby further worsening our economic condition, especially when the view against the backdrop of the national tragedy of not being a good economic manager? What's your view to this?
Yeah, I think this is quite related to the Exxon Seplat. You mentioned briefly,
Yeah,
that
I was
came up.
about coming to that, but that's why I
Yeah,
took the question.
that came up in the news. I think it's a no-brainer, really. If you and I were shareholders in any of these IOCs, and you keep bringing investment into Nigeria, and after production, somebody comes up from nowhere and tells you that he's the owner of what you have produced and is able to take it away, and you can't call on security agencies to apprehend the person and persecute the person. Will you bring additional investment to such a
Hmm,
sector?
hmm, hmm.
So it's understandable why many of them are saying we've had enough headache with our operations in Nigeria. So maybe it's time. Can we monetize it? Can we divest and take our money and move on to other parts of the world? So it's not an issue of Africa, because we're aware they're investing in many other African countries, but it's just a case of having enough of the Nigerian trouble. A clear demonstration of the fact that these are very unserious set of people. They're not able to
Hmm.
manage themselves. They're not able to address basic issues like this, and that is understandable why a few of them have decided to pursue the option of divesting the assets. And of course, if you don't address this issue, I will not be surprised if others follow suit. We've
Hmm.
heard of instances of a few Nigerian investors who bought some of the previous divested assets, and basically many of them are complaining. About that. Probably some of them are losing as much as more than 50% of their production. So clearly that's not sustainable. So even the Nigerian investors that invest in these sectors, if these issues are not addressed, I won't be surprised that very soon if they're also looking for those who will take up those assets from them.
You have actually opened our eyes to this, and I think the stakeholders, the government, are actually listening. That we need to take the bull by the horn and take this with all seriousness. Otherwise, in years to come, we might just find ourselves alone doing our business the way we want to do it, and our people are going down the drain, the poverty. Someone wants to know something about asking what benefit is Dangote refinery to Nigeria and to Nigerians.
Well, maybe if you look at other businesses that Dangote has been involved in, for example, is producing cement in Nigeria. So, and I think it's a thing of pride that we will get to a point where we don't have to import cement. So if we have interventions in other sectors of our economy where we are so import dependent, that will be a good development. So for me, so that's where I see Dangote refinery also coming into play. A typical refinery will employ a large number of people, skilled labor engineers and all that. And of course, I think it should be preaching to the Pope if I say that we have high unemployment rate in Nigeria and we have issues with employment. So if
You can say
Dangote
that.
refinery, so if Dangote refinery is working and is able to take a couple of millions of people out of the unemployment market, that will have significant impact on the Nigerian economy. Recall, the crude that we have is not usable until it is refined.
Yeah.
Because we don't have any refinery that is operating in Nigeria, we are creating jobs for other people that are helping us to refine our crude. When they refine it, they make profit, they pay taxes to their countries, they create jobs for their people. Why? Ours, we're busy graduating people with no jobs for them, with no
Hmm.
experience. And of course, the best of Nigerians are basically now living in droves, leaving Nigeria to explore options in other countries. So I think Nigeria can make do with two or three or even five of the magnitude type of refinery that Dangote is building today. Yes, there's discussions around energy transition, moving to cleaner fuel, but clearly, I don't think Africa will be ready for that in the next couple of decades. So I think there will still be commercial basis,
Yeah.
to put investment into refineries.
Sincerely speaking, time will not be our friend. But as we wind up, let me just say this in the PIA, we have something that has to do with the host community and the oil company providing necessary support and cooperation to complement the Nigerian government effort towards combating the menace of crude oil. What's your idea of your support of this in a minute?
Yeah, well, I think this is a good provision in the law. Basically formalizing a lot of what's already happening in that sector. Many of the operators in that sector have memorandum of understanding with various host communities where they make contribution and have intervention from time to time. Of course, because the Nigerian government is nowhere to be found. Ordinarily, infrastructure that should have been provided by Mr. President and his team, the oil industry is basically taking responsibility for it. Many of them providing roads, building bridges, providing water, and all that. So the host community is then basically formalizing that, expecting every player in the industry to set up host community trust fund and have a structure, such that the funds are not just being filtered away with the kind of thing we've seen with intervention agencies like NDDC and the like, where we have professionals, tested and trusted people who will come in and manage these resources, for the benefit of the host communities, such that the communities can actually be transformed. You know, there are communities where we're producing crude oil, and many of these communities don't have basic amenities. Many of them don't have viable hospitals. Many of them don't have clean water. So we sincerely hope that with this kind of intervention, with this kind of structure, in the next decade or thereabout, we see huge transformation in the lifestyle of people in the host communities, such that they can feel the impact of crude oil exploration and exploitation in their communities.
Oh, very wonderful submission to that as per the community and the stakeholder. In closing, because that will not be our friend, and you've done justice to this topic. But let me ask you this as we wind up the program for today. Assuming you are before Mr. President, who is the substantive minister of petroleum, in 60 seconds, what will be your advice to bring this crude oil theft and menace to an end?
The first thing I will do is that, like I said earlier on, I'll relocate to the Niger Delta as the president of the country and the minister of petroleum and the commander in chief, and I'll read the riot act to my the leadership of all the security agencies. And if the issue is not addressed within a short period of time, I will not hesitate to sack as many of them as possible, and I'll keep changing them until I get a team that will address the issue. It's clearly not acceptable. It's not something that we should and that we can live with as a nation. So if I were Mr. President, or if I'm an advisor to Mr. President, this would be an unacceptable practice and must be stamped out. And I'm sure we can do it within a month. Crude theft can be a thing of the past if we marshal the required resources, to get it out of the way.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ayo Akinduyeti, FCA, for actually talking to us today on crude oil theft and the economic impact. And I can tell you for free, our listeners, our viewers have gained a lot in having deeper understanding. And I'm sure if they have opportunity in the place of leadership, they understand certain things that they need to do in order to make sure that the revenue drive is increased, even knowing fully well that the crude oil contribute to 90% of our foreign exchange and we can domesticate things. Thank you very much for making it out this evening with us on ICAN on Air. And we believe when next we call, you will definitely give us a wonderful and brilliant time. On this note, we are winding up today and I have a few announcements to share with us. The 52nd Annual Accountant Conference is coming up, as we have been telling you, October 10th to 14th at the International Conference Center and the Sheraton Hotel in Abuja. For those of us, or all of us, are all invited. The 58th president is prepared. You can visit our website and you have all the flyers, on all social medias of ICAN that you can visit and have an idea of it. For those that will be there without mail, I know it's about 130,000. Those that will participate virtually, 75,000. And the young accountant with condition is going to pay 60,000. So I want to implore us to take this as one of the areas where we need to add value even to our knowledge base by being part of the 52nd Annual Accountant Conference. And also the World Accountant Conference comes up in November. And we expect that with the strategic role that ICAN plays in IFAC, our members are mobilized to be part of this. And on the final note, once again, I want to congratulate and wish the lead doyen of the accountancy profession in person of Mr. Akintola Williams, membership number 000014, man that got chartered in the year 1949. On behalf of the 58th president of our institute, Malam Tijani Musa Isa, FCA, the governing council of our great institute, and all professional colleagues, we celebrate you, sir. Wishing you many more years with good strength and great sense. On this note, I'm cutting the short today, and I'll be back again on Thursday. I remain your host, Olusesan Okwade. See you again on Thursday with another insightful topic. Till then, bye for now.